Noah was born as the 13th son of the royal family, one of the 13 imperial princes born from the king's lineage. When he opened his eyes, he saw a gentle-looking woman gazing down at him and wondered if she was his mother or merely a maid. Before he could think further, an elderly bearded man approached and examined him closely, revealing himself to be the king, his father. The king remarked that Noah seemed to resemble his mother, causing her to shy away and insist that his eyes and brows looked exactly like the king's instead. Noah soon realized he could see his own stats, though they didn't make much sense to him yet. Suddenly, a court mage stepped forward, carefully lifting him and announcing that Noah possessed a water magical affinity. The king laughed happily and said that when Noah grew up, he would grant him the southern territories where most water mage clans resided, so he could rule them fairly. The king then ordered the mage to check Noah's stats, but as soon as they were revealed, the entire court fell silent. Even the king was stunned. Someone shouted that it was a miracle, and others joined in, leaving Noah confused until he checked his own stats and discovered he was an SS-ranked water mage, something unheard of, especially at birth. 6 years passed, and Noah grew into a healthy young boy. He learned about the kingdom of Mears, ruled peacefully by his father for decades. The people lived without war, and the king and his sons were beloved by both nobles and commoners alike. However, Noah wasn't interested in politics, as he had discovered something extraordinary about himself. He had a unique ability to absorb XP from his subordinates, meaning the more maids he had, the stronger he could become. Unlike others with level limits, Noah could grow endlessly and potentially become the strongest mage in the world. His maids were completely loyal and often remarked how mature he acted for a 6-year-old. During breakfast, Noah reflected on how limited his abilities still were due to his age, but he believed consistent training would allow him to surpass his older brothers. His thoughts were interrupted by a beautiful maid named Evelyn, who informed him that the crown prince and the fourth prince had come to see him. Noah quickly finished his meal, knowing it would be disrespectful to keep the crown prince waiting. He entered the guest room and knelt, greeting his brothers, Crown Prince Albert and fourth Prince Henry. Albert coldly asked where Noah had been, while Henry greeted him warmly and commented on how polite he had become. Albert said Noah would make a fine chancellor someday, and revealed he had brought a gift. He clapped his hands, and a terrified servant entered carrying a small coffin that emitted a sinister aura. Confused, Noah watched as Albert ordered the servant to open it. When the lid lifted, an overwhelming aura of death filled the room, and Noah stared at the sword inside, unsettled by what he felt. Albert told him to pick it up and test it. Though hesitant, Noah knew he couldn't refuse a royal gift, so he carefully lifted the oversized blade. Albert smiled and explained that the sword was called Leviathan, a weapon crafted specifically for water mages. He revealed that over 120 people had tried to wield it and none had survived. Noah nearly dropped it, but Henry reassured him that if the sword had rejected him, he would have died instantly. The two princes left shortly after, while Noah bowed and thought bitterly about how his own brother had tested him with such a deadly gift. Later that night, Noah noticed one of his maids, Zoe, acting nervous. When he asked her what was wrong, she hesitated before kneeling and explaining that her village had been destroyed by a flood. Her family was starving, and she planned to sell herself to earn money for them. Noah immediately stopped her, saying she was his personal maid and he wouldn't allow that. He instructed her to bring her mother to the estate and promised her a job with a salary of $5,000 per month, along with a house on the outskirts of the capital. Zoe was overwhelmed with emotion and began crying in disbelief. When Dylan, the house butler, arrived, Noah asked him about the flooding and ordered him to purchase as much land in that area as possible. Dylan was confused, calling it a terrible investment, but Noah insisted they needed to protect the people before villains took over the land. Dylan was shocked by Noah's foresight, noting how mature he seemed despite never experiencing such events. Noah thought about the destruction he had witnessed in his previous life, but kept it to himself. Dylan estimated the land would cost around $70 million, shocking Zoe and even Noah. With only $50 million available, Noah decided to sell land in the south of the capital, despite it being a gift from a king. Dylan warned him that selling it would be disrespectful, but Noah insisted nobles must sacrifice for their people and also knew such actions would earn public admiration. Dylan bowed and began preparations. The next morning, Noah prepared to inspect the flooded region when Henry called him over. Noah explained he was heading to Dasa to assess damage and buy land. Henry noticed the Leviathan's sword and asked if he planned to use it. Noah said he was carrying it just in case, but hadn't felt anything unusual yet. Henry privately warned him that he had researched the sword and discovered it had its own will, accepting only a true master. Noah recalled the visions of previous wielders and realized the sword was like a wild beast that needed to be tamed. Henry advised him not to use it unless absolutely necessary, fearing it could take his life just as it had taken many others before. With that warning in mind, Noah heads toward the Dasa region and is shocked by the massive destruction left behind by the floods. He asks Dylan to locate the nearest government office and investigate the land deeds of the area. After that, he and Zoe enter the village to observe the situation more closely. He sees people living in poorly built shelters lining up for government relief food, which makes him somewhat relieved. However, that feeling disappears instantly when he tastes the disgusting porridge they're being served. He can't believe the government would allow such low-quality food and decides to speak with a local official. Right on cue, the local lord, Garl, arrives for an inspection. Noah expects him to take action, but instead, Garl pinches his nose, glances at the porridge, and declares it acceptable. The cooks are thrilled, as they are clearly exploiting the situation. The head cook tells Garl that his meal is ready at the mansion, and he immediately leaves for his luxurious feast. Noah loses his patience and confronts him, calling him a corrupt little bastard with a tiny PP, which hits Garl's fragile ego hard. Enraged, Garl draws his sword. Noah summons the Leviathan sword that Albert gave him, hoping it will kill the man. The blade flies to him, but instead of obeying, it resists and burns him with its sinister aura. Noah refuses to give up and eventually overpowers the weapon, gaining full control over the legendary blade. With that, Garl stands no chance. Noah easily blocks his attack and declares that exploiting people during a disaster deserves death. With a single slash, he cuts off Garl's head, shocking everyone nearby. The guards surround him, and it seems he might be lynched, but he slams the sword into the ground, creating a massive crater that stuns everyone. The commotion draws the attention of Rowan, the newly appointed knight managing the area. Rowan recognizes Noah instantly and kneels before him. The crowd is stunned, but follows suit. Noah orders Rowan to ensure everyone receives proper food, and Rowan apologizes and gets to work immediately. After returning, Noah is summoned to the capital by his father. He expects to be scolded, but instead, his father praises his decisions and checks his updated stats, which have improved. He thanks Noah and tells him he will need his help ruling the kingdom. Part 2. A few days later, Noah remains in the capital, the heart of the kingdom and its most prosperous city, where talented individuals gather. He plans to recruit someone talented to boost his stats and grow stronger quickly. His first target is a young girl rumored to be an incredible rising singer. He finds the theater where she's performing and watches alongside Zoe. A girl wearing a top hat named Ollie appears on stage and begins singing. Noah is immediately captivated. She isn't the most technically skilled singer he's heard, but her passion is undeniable. He believes with proper training, she could become great and starts thinking about taking her under his wing. Before she finishes, a group of goons storms into the theater and tells her to shut up. The audience freezes as the men approach the stage. A worker tries to stop them, but the fat leader shoves him aside and jumps on stage, demanding money and mocking her for trying to repay her father's debt through singing. He suggests she should start a social media channel, post thirst traps, selfies, or even sell bathwater. She refuses, saying she is a respectable girl. He threatens to break her legs if she doesn't comply. That's when Noah steps in and tells him to back off. The fat man insults Noah and threatens him. But Noah calmly approaches the stage and explains that forcing children to pay their parents' debts and making people sell their bodies is illegal under imperial law. The fatty grabs him and lifts him up, declaring today is his last day. But with a snap of his fingers, Noah releases a terrifying purple aura that knocks all the goons down. He draws his sword, and the goons realize they're outmatched and run away. Zoe helps the injured worker, and Noah tells him to report the thugs if they return. Zoe gives the worker a business card, shocking him when he learns Noah is actually a prince. Noah ignores the attention and asks Ollie about her monthly expenses. She estimates around $600 due to her mother's treatment costs. Noah offers her $2,500 per month to focus on singing, with increases as she improves. She is stunned but accepts. He asks her to finish the song and returns to his seat. Later that evening, when Noah returns home, he finds the same goons bowing and begging for forgiveness. He realizes they finally learned who he is, but refuses to meet them, telling his maid to send them away since a prince doesn't have time for random people. Just then, his older brother Henry arrives and says Noah made the correct choice, since speaking to commoners whenever they want would lower his authority as a prince. Noah explains that wasn't the only reason. He wanted them to believe he was still furious about what they did with the girl earlier, hoping it would scare them enough to never bother her again. Henry asks who this girl is and why Noah seems so concerned about her. Noah says she is an extremely talented singer and could become a valuable asset to the kingdom if she continues improving. Henry smiles and says Noah is still young, but already thinks about political matters like a mature adult. He mentions that Gary is around the same age, but acts childish and nowhere near as intelligent. Noah politely replies that Gary will eventually understand these things too. He also knows that even though he calls Henry and Gary his brothers, they share the same mother while he does not. Henry then shifts the topic to Noah's sword, saying he never thought it was possible, but Noah has truly mastered it. He asks where the sword is and how Noah carries something so large. Noah stands up and demonstrates, using his magic to summon the sword instantly in front of him. Henry is shocked, jokingly asking how he managed to pull it out and if it hurt. Noah explains that he simply shrinks the sword and hides it inside his sleeve. Henry sits back down in disbelief, saying that sword was considered cursed and sealed away for over 2 centuries, with no one ever known to conquer it. Later that night, Noah attends a celebration and notices the same goons still lying on the ground. The fat man gets furious again, yelling that he can kill Noah anywhere and he shouldn't act superior. In response, Noah releases a tiny bit of energy from his sword, instantly dropping the man to his knees again. Noah then enters his carriage and arrives at the venue, where an old man named Ree greets him. The ballroom erupts with excitement when people hear the 13th prince has arrived. Ree asks about the sword, and Noah explains it is the legendary cursed blade gifted to him by Crown Prince Albert. Everyone is impressed, saying receiving a personal gift from the Crown Prince is a huge honor. A jealous man loudly claims the sword must be a fake toy, not realizing everyone heard him. The room goes silent as everyone stares at Noah, while the man begins to panic. Without moving, a deadly aura suddenly bursts from Noah's sword, covering the entire room and putting everyone in a trance. Noah immediately stops it, and Ree says everyone felt extremely close to death. Soon after, Noah sits on a small throne while people line up to pay their respects and seek his favor, but he finds them boring. Then a blond man named Alan approaches with his adopted daughter Cindy. Cindy seems wary of Noah, but Noah ignores that and asks how Alan adopted her. Alan explains he bought her from a slave market, but she was intelligent, strong-willed, and socially skilled, so he decided to adopt her since he had no children. Noah likes the story and invites them to his mansion to talk more. Alan is pleased, but Noah later tells Ree that he invited them because Cindy somehow sensed his power. He proves it by releasing a bit of energy, and Cindy immediately reacts, checking for danger. A few days later, Noah meets the 8th Prince Oscar and walks through the market with him. While browsing random items, Noah finds a grimoire that suddenly boosts one of his stats to S rank. He buys it, but his sword starts reacting. Oscar recognizes it as an ancient magical tome, but the book suddenly opens and releases a massive monster. Oscar tells Noah to retreat, but Noah confronts it. His first strike fails, so he adds magic to his next slash, aiming upward to avoid destruction. The creature vanishes instantly, leaving Oscar shocked at how powerful his younger brother has become. A shopkeeper witnesses this and bows, asking Noah to look at a special item. He shows him a magical ring that never accepted an owner. Noah tries it, and his body is instantly covered in a beautiful suit of armor. Shocked but impressed, Noah buys it, but Oscar insists on gifting it to him. Noah then heads to the theater to watch Ollie sing. As he exits the carriage, the fat man attacks him with his sword, but Noah blocks it with a shield from the ring, and the driver captures the attacker. Noah doesn't care and enters the theater, where Ollie is dealing with 2 drunk men fighting over her. Noah destroys their clothes with magic, and they flee. He calls the owner and complains about the poor security, offering to buy the entire theater. The owner hesitates, but Zoe pulls out $100,000, convincing him instantly. Zoe thanks Noah, but he tells her to focus on singing because he wants her to perform in front of the king someday. Noah sits back down as Ollie begins singing a special song just for him. And that's where the video ends. Remember to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.